Today we're taking a first look at the brand new Jamis Dragon. This is the brand new Jamis Dragon. It is a steel hardtail and it's been updated for 2021. It's got some new geometry and I'm excited to show it to you today. The Jamis Dragon first came out in 1993. Jamis has been making high-end steel hardtails for the last 30 years uninterrupted. The Dragon has always been a steel hardtail. And if Jamis has a steel hardtail, it's using Reynolds tubing. Jamis has a long time history using Reynolds tubing. Their manufacturer that welds these frames is a very small shop and they work directly with Reynolds. And they use Reynolds tubing throughout the whole bike, not just the front triangle. Some companies just have a Reynolds front triangle so they can get that sticker on there. Then they use no-name tubing on the back. So I'm glad to see that. This frame is a Reynolds 520 frame. Reynolds 853, while awesome, is getting more and more expensive, so they opted for the 520 to keep this closer to most people's budgets. So this is a 29er steel hardtail. It's got room for 29 by 2.6 tires. It's running a 140 mil Fox rhythm fork. This is a 17-inch frame, or a medium. It's kind of interesting that they're still going by the 15-inch, 17-inch. That measures the seat tube height. And when you open up the box that this bike comes in, there's a little graphic, the same graphic we had in the 90s that shows you how to size your bike based on standover height, where you stand over the top tube and lift it up, and as long as you can lift it up an inch, it's the right height. That's pretty funny to still see because that is not how we should be sizing bikes these days. Anyway, that made me chuckle and brought back a blast from the past. And that's kind of an old school way to measure. And there's actually a couple old school things still going on with this bike, for better or for worse. For one, there's a whole bunch of warning stickers all over it. It's too bad. It kind of gives it a little bit cheaper feel. It just kind of feels, I don't know, almost department store-like when you see all these warning labels. Anyway, those are easy to peel off. I'm sure their lawyers make them have them on there for a reason. Let's talk geometry. This has a 65-degree head angle, a 463 mil reach in a size medium or 17, and it has a 76-degree seat angle, which is, that's pretty modern these days. It's got 435 mil chainstays and a straight seat tube, which I love to see. It's got a 60 mil bottom bracket drop, which is nice and modern. It's not meant to be a super hardcore hardtail, and I appreciate that. I find a lot of these super enduro bikes are so enduro that they're not great on everyday trails. And I think 65-degree head angle with a steep seat angle and a nice modern reach, I think that can be ridden really well everywhere. So I applaud Jamis. This Dragon on paper looks quite modern. Now, unfortunately, they opted to go for a longer offset fork. I'm not crazy about that, especially with the 65-degree head angle. I know we all have different opinions about that, but I really like a short offset fork when they get more aggressive like this. But that's personal preference. But most bikes we're seeing these days do have the short offset fork, so that's a bummer to see that. This frame is made in Taiwan like so many other frames. Paint looks good. Welds look okay. Not the cleanest, prettiest work I've seen, but I'm sure they're plenty strong and I'm sure it'll work just fine. We've only got one set of water bottle mounts. I'm glad they didn't put any in the seat tube because that limits seat post insertion, but I'm surprised they didn't put one underneath at least. We've got a 140 mil Fox rhythm fork. I really like the Fox rhythm fork. It's a great fork for the price. It feels really good. And it's exciting to see they bumped it up to 140 this year. We've got a threaded bottom bracket and ISCG tabs. Cable routing is 100% external. It's too bad they've put it kind of on the side of the down tube. Let me show you. So the cable routing is fully external, but it's on the side of the down tube, not on the bottom, which feels weird. Norco does that with their Torrent, and it looks like they're trying to tuck it out of the way for photos so you don't see them, but still keep them external. But I don't like it. I wish it was all centered under the bottom. That's me personally. It's got a gusset on the head tube. I don't like the look of this, but that's all personal preference. This just looks, it reminds me of the 80s a little bit, but I'd like it if they either capped it off or had a different gusset. I know we're getting picky, but some people really like that style. I'm not a huge fan of it, but if it works and it's strong, who cares? Spec-wise, it comes with the Fox Rhythm 34, and I love this fork for the price. I had one on my Chameleon and was just blown away by how good that thing felt. It felt super plush. We've got 4-piston Shimano brakes, front and rear. We've got Shimano SLX 12-speed. It comes with a KMC chain. I'll be interested to see how that plays with the Shimano drivetrain. We've got race face cranks. Unfortunately, they're 175 mil length. That's a little old school to me. And for like a large or extra large, I could see that making sense where the riders are going to have longer legs. But on the medium or small, 175 is really long. And crank length doesn't just affect pedal strikes. It affects how big of a circle you're pedaling in. So people with longer legs can pedal bigger circles than people with shorter legs. But when we put 175s on the mediums and the smalls, those people with small legs still have to pedal big circles. So that's just a personal note of mine. We've got a race face cockpit, race face stem, race face bars. We've got these race face cranks, and we've got a KS dropper with a WTB Volt saddle. It's got Stan's Flow D wheels. I love Stan's rim profile. I have not pinch flatted a Stan's yet. It'll happen one day, but they pinch flat way less than other rims to me. And I don't feel like they dent easily either. Just that rim profile is really nice. And Stan's rims seat beads really well. One thing I didn't like about this, they were not set up tubeless, which is so weird because Stan's brought tubeless to the mainstream, but they had like that little plastic rim strip in there instead of rim tape. So that's a bummer that you have to tape your wheels to make it tubeless. We've got name brand tires. We've got 2.3 Trail Boss in the rear and a 2.5 Vigilante in the front. And this bike comes in at $2,099. That's a pretty sweet price point, and it's got a lot of great spec on paper. However, when you lift this thing up, it is heavy. It is noticeably heavy. On the website, it states 32 pounds. With pedals on it, this weighed 33.5 pounds. That is a lot of weight for a hardtail. And at $2,099, I would expect it to be lighter. I'm betting the frame's pretty heavy. I'm betting a lot of these parts are heavy. These wheels are probably heavy. Man, I don't know where that went though. That's a lot of weight. That's like Hanzo ESD, Marin Elroy, RSD, RS291 weight. That's really heavy. And you're going to notice that. That's a bummer. But everything looks solid, and most people aren't buying steel hardtails to have the lightest ride around or to save weight. It's a shame though, because back in the 90s and early 2000s, the steel hardtails back then were really light, and so they were still zippy, but they had that comfortable ride feel. But these days, steel frames tend to be getting beefier and beefier, in my opinion. Another great thing about these bikes is they are in stock, and they have 500 dealers across all 50 states. So if you're looking to get a hardtail today, your dealer has these. And with so many direct-to-consumer bikes these days, it's cool to see these are going out to dealers where people can throw a leg over them, try a couple different sizes, and see what they like. So while the geometry is not ultra hardcore, it's also not ultra old school. It's a nice updated geometry. I'm a little disappointed in the weight, but I'm glad that everything is name brand parts. There's no Jamis branded stem or bars or anything like that. So what would I change about this bike? They're all small things and they're all cosmetic things. I would change the gusset. I just don't like the look of that, and I feel like it's always dirty up inside of there. I would get rid of this because I don't like the look of that. This is all style. That's not doing a single thing to strengthen this. I'd shorten the seat tube just a little just because I'm weird like that. And I'd change the cable routing to be centered on the down tube or run on top of the down tube. And the cable routing's a bit of a mess if we're honest. It looks more like an afterthought. And good cable routing's really hard to do. It's surprising how many companies still haven't perfected cable routing. So that's a small thing. That's not a deal breaker and a reason not to buy the bike. But those are areas where I think this could be improved. I'm glad to see external routing. I'm glad to see ISCG tabs. I'm glad to see threaded bottom bracket. I love seeing the straight seat tube. I love that it's 148 boost with a through axle. I love the geometry, 65-degree head angle, nice and modern. 463 reach, nice long reach. This looks like a really well put together bike that could ride a lot of places really well. I think its Achilles heel is going to be that weight. 33.5 pounds is really heavy, and I don't know how I would make it lighter. I don't know if it's cranks or wheels or just a little bit of everything. It could be the frame. Maybe this fork's really heavy. I'm not sure where all that weight went. This is just a first look. I'm making assumptions. We'll see how it rides when I take it out on the trail, because that's really what matters. Some bikes ride way heavier than they are, and some bikes ride way lighter than they are. We'll see. I'm going to go into it with an open mind, but knowing everything I know about it now without having set a foot on it, It looks really well put together, modern geometry, and at $2,099, you get a lot of bang for your buck. So that's pretty awesome. 28 years later, the Dragon is still going strong. I'm curious, if you were to get a Dragon, would you get green or black, and which size would you get? Post your comments in the discussion below. I'd love to hear what you think about it. And make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when I drop the ride review of this bike. Thanks for watching. There's a party in the mountains, and you're invited.